It is 3:30 p.m. here on the East Coast, 12:30 on the West Coast. It is January 10th, 2017. I am your host, Alex Fuse, and you are watching a brand new Sports Fusion News episode. I have a very special guest on my show today, Matt Harmon, NFL.com writer. We'll be talking some college football, big game last night for Clemson, and also the big playoffs for the NFL in the next few weeks. So, Matt, I want to welcome you on Sports Fusion News today, and thanks for taking the time to come on my show.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always it's a great time of year to talk football, obviously, with the playoffs going on, but also college football and everything. This is really what it's all about. And, we spent so much time leading up to the season. It's almost great, and then it's so exhausting when it's finally over, but it's just great to be here talking about the playoffs, too. This is, like I said, my favorite time of year.
Yeah, so, Matt, I know you're a writer at NFL.com. So you don't really have to cover the college football game from yesterday, but what was it like watching that game from a fan viewpoint for you?
My favorite thing to do is to watch college football and just kind of be able to divest myself from it. I don't have to cover it. I don't have to be professionally paying attention. You can follow along on Twitter with which can be really fun, of course, especially college football. There always seems to be good memes or jokes going around, which is, like I said, a ton of fun. Also, it's cool to see, the players that are going to be coming to the NFL soon. Deshaun Watson was a ton of fun to watch yesterday. And, of course, many other players on Clemson as well as some of the Alabama guys. And kind of seeing these storylines that, as a NFL writer, you're not plugged into professionally, but kind of seeing these guys that eventually you will be. It's great to watch. Like I said, college football is a ton of fun because not only are, I'm not invested in it professionally, but also just, these games, they tend to be so close and intense in these national championships. And it's really fun when it comes down to a close one like that.
Yeah, it was really exciting. And, I'm an Ohio State fan, I will say. So I was a little upset my Buckeyes weren't in the championship game last night. But I'm glad the championship team that won was Clemson that beat Ohio State. So I'm happy that, the team that beat Ohio State won the championship. So.
Yeah, it's the transitive property, it's you can say you lost the eventual championship, so it's more fun that way. But it was a great, like I said, great series all around. Some of the bowl games too were really fun. It's been a good year, in my opinion, here at the end of college football.
Yeah, it's been a great year. And before I talk some NFL football with Matt, I just want to give a special shout out to Connor Hall. He got the exact score of the game last night correct and said that Clemson was going to win in a shootout game. So I just want to shout Connor Hall out. He's a high school reporter just like I am here in upstate New York. So a special shout out to Connor Hall for that great prediction. Okay, Matt, also here in upstate New York, the Giants unfortunately let down these Giant fans up here in upstate New York this past weekend by losing to the Packers. So with this Giants team, do you see this team making the playoffs in the next few years, or do you think it was a fluke way to get into the playoffs for the Giants?
Well, I think the one thing you see with the Giants right now is that, the defensive improvements that they tried to make in the offseason through free agency and a little bit in the draft as well, that really seemed to come together. Their defense, in my opinion, by the end of the year was playing better than pretty much anybody else's. Obviously Aaron Rodgers, who's probably the hottest player in the NFL right now, had, something else to say about that on the game on Sunday. But at the same time, you look at that defense that's got a lot of talent there. Obviously, I think bringing back Jason Pierre-Paul, who said, they was not going to re-sign on a one-year deal, which makes sense for him. They have to try to keep that core together and hopefully even make some more improvements next year. But I think that kind of gives them a formula. And, of course, on offense is really where the only concern kind of lies was this year for Eli Manning kind of the beginning of the end. I mean, GM Jerry Reese said he's on the back nine of his career. So if Eli can kind of regain the form that we've seen from him, prior to 2016, I think that they're in really good shape. But if they see, sort of similar mediocre player, potentially even see him take another step back next year, that would be a really bad sign for their odds to make the postseason next year. But otherwise, I think they do have talent on offense. They just need to improve the protection and hopefully get a more sustainable running game going there as well. But the defense gives them a pretty good formula to work with.
Now, one surprising team that really stood out to me that actually made the playoffs as well are the Oakland Raiders. And with Derek Carr getting hurt in the last few weeks of the NFL season, it kind of put a damper on things for the Raiders. they didn't really have that real chance to get further than the wild card game to go on further in the playoffs. So next season, do you see this Oakland Raiders team becoming the same team they were this past season?
I think so. I mean, it really was a bum rap for the Raiders fans there that waited so long to see their team back in the postseason again, and the one time they do, their young star quarterback gets hurt. And Derek Carr was playing pretty much as well as any quarterback in the NFL by the time he got hurt. He's got two great receivers to work with there, which they didn't show up on Saturday against the Texans, but I think a lot of that has to do with just the lack of confidence at the quarter that they had with the player at the quarterback position in Connor Cook. So I think the Raiders will be right there in it. They need to make some improvements on defense for sure. We saw several times them really get torn apart, especially by faster players, speedier receivers, T.Y. Hilton, Brandon Cooks type of guys. They really gave them a lot of problems. So I think they'll focus a lot of their attention on hopefully improving that side of the ball. But I think the Raiders will be right in it. The question is, they play in a tough division. I have a ton of respect for what the Chiefs do. I think Denver, depending on who they hire as a head coach, will probably be right back in it as well. So that's probably the biggest concern for them. But to me, I think they absolutely have a good young foundation.
Okay. Now, are you concerned about the New England Patriots this playoff season? Because they did lose their big guy, Rob Gronkowski, a few weeks ago to a season-ending back injury. So do you see Rob Gronkowski, who has a lot of experience in this postseason atmosphere for New England? So with Rob Gronkowski getting hurt, do you think that could, be a big disadvantage for this New England Patriots team this season?
Well, the good thing about the Patriots, depending on how you feel about them, is that they game plan better for different opponents, in a way that other teams don't really do. They are able to switch up their game plan, their personnel packages, depending on who they face. And so I think, of course, you will see them do that this playoff season. But it is a big loss. I mean, if you just look at Tom Brady's career passer rating with and without Rob Gronkowski, there's a huge difference. This year, I think they've managed to offset it a little bit, but we've also seen that loss come back to bite them in big ways in previous years, including some postseason runs. So I think it could show up as an X factor, but I think they have a ton of other players to beat you with. And I mean, you have to consider them the favorite in the AFC, but at the same time, I agree with you that it'll be a big difference. And I think the Chiefs, or especially the Steelers, if they're playing at their best, they could give the New England Patriots a run for their money as the favorite in the AFC.
Okay. Now, I made an earlier prediction at the beginning of the season, and I said the Patriots and the Cowboys are my Super Bowl predictions, with the Patriots beating the Cowboys. Now, this is before I saw how well Dak Prescott was in the regular season. Now, since Dak Prescott is, of course, a rookie quarterback, do you think him in this kind of atmosphere as well, going against in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs now, which he's never really been in, could hurt the Cowboys in a way?
I think everybody has been waiting all year for the rookie factor between both Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott to eventually come back to bite the Cowboys, and it hasn't really. Prescott had a questionable outing against the Giants, which was one of their losses, but I mean, other than that, he's been great. I think the lack of experience could certainly show up. It's a bigger stage, but it's hard to say that he has been on a small stage there in Dallas with all the media attention, especially on those two rookies. So I think that's a big question. I would say that I think he's going to be up to the task, but certainly wouldn't surprise me if Aaron Rodgers, goes into Dallas and knocks off the number one seed there, because, like I mentioned earlier, nobody's playing a quarterback position better than him right now. He's absolutely on fire, and the thing with Dallas that makes them such a good team is that they can make other organizations play on their script. Slow it down, run the ball. Have to constantly be chasing their tail and not running a lot of plays. And I think if Green Bay can get up, a 10-point, 14-point lead right away on the Cowboys, then a lot of it's going to fall on Prescott. He'll have to, step up more than he normally does. So I think if Green Bay gets off to a fast start, we could see that come back to bite them. But at the same time, Dallas has been doing this all year, so it's hard to question too much.
I think a lot of Dallas fans have to feel some sort of relief since the Giants got knocked out of the playoffs this past weekend. Wouldn't you say that?
I would think so, because obviously they lost kind of a meaningless Week 17 game against the Eagles, where they had Tony Romo and Mark Sanchez especially taking snaps. So you can't really count that one. Their other two losses came to the Giants, especially that one later in the season where Prescott didn't play so well. So I would think that just kind of having that monkey off their back maybe might be something that makes them sleep easier at night.
Okay, Matt, before we wrap up this interview, final predictions for the NFL playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think that the Falcons end up the Falcons and the Packers end up beating in the NFC Championship game, and I think the Packers end up beating them there. I have a lot of respect for what the Falcons did this season, and especially Matt Ryan, who I think is a very deserving MVP candidate. But at the same time, it's so hard to stop Green Bay right now, and the Falcons have the 27th ranked defense according to Football Outsiders DVOA. So I really don't know if they can handle Aaron Rodgers. And I think in the AFC, I've been sticking with this prediction the whole playoffs, and I think that the Chiefs end up emerging kind of as a surprise Super Bowl attendee from the AFC. I think that they can beat Pittsburgh this weekend, who always plays down to their competition on the road. That's just one of those weird trends that's held up for multiple years. And I think that the Chiefs can get the Patriots off their script and have them play the way that Kansas City wants to play, and I think that I would take them in that game, even if it is in Foxborough. So I think those two will end up being our Super Bowl representations.
Okay, Matt, thank you for coming on my show today, and I want you to tell the Fuse Nation where they can follow you on Twitter and read your articles on NFL.com.
My pleasure. This is a good chat. Like I said, it's always fun to talk NFL playoffs. And you can follow me on Twitter at @MattHarmon_BYB, and you can read all of my musings on football and the rest of it at NFL.com/Harmon.
Okay, great. Thank you again, Matt, for coming on my show today.
My pleasure, man.
Okay, Fuse Nation, I'll be back here live on YouTube at 4 p.m. with Pete Irizzo. He is a sports writer at the Times Union newspaper here in upstate New York. Thank you for watching the Sports Fusion episode. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at AlexFuse. Comment below of what you think about this show, and comment below of what your predictions are for this NFL playoff season. Very exciting season ahead this offseason. Playoffs. That's what I meant to say. Oh well. Be back here at 4, Fuse Nation. I will see you then. Thank you for watching.